IVM.
कृपया ध्यान दीजिए, the language used on the podcast may not be fit for consumption. We warn you, tread carefully. But listen yaar, don't be so conservative. Not sure what the show is called. I still don't know. Nobody tells me. It may be Cyrus Says. It may be Cock and Bull, because at the moment it's just me, Amit and Silverie. We like to have a couple of shows every week where we can just chat without the guests coming and interrupting us. Guests always have too much to say, and it's always about them being very nice and shy about their achievements, and then they start talking. There's no end to it. I would like to quickly just say one thing though. A lot of criticism coming our way from the Western media, British, Australian, etc., about Chepauk, Chennai track, saying that it was turning from day one, impossible to bat on, really unfair for the visitor. This nonsense has to end. Not to sound jingoistic, but it's nonsense. You go to England, the seaming tracks. Australia, hard bouncy tracks. New Zealand, once again, the ball swings and seams. India, it spins. It's a natural law. Just face it and accept it. That's the way it is. It's fair for everyone. It's like saying in India, we won't allow people to protest and strike. I grew up with protestants. Oh, that's right. That's right. Right now, they can't do that. That's right. You're right. I'm sorry. My point was useless.
From uncensored and unfiltered chats with the who's who of the entertainment industry, I, Siddharth Kannan, bring your very heartcake chat show called Candid Kannan. Tune in every Friday on the IVM podcast app or wherever you get your podcasts.
We'll go straight into the show. Cock and Bull. Amit is there. Silverie is there. And
Hello.
Hopefully we've got some interesting topics, which may or may not.
What you're saying, first, I mean, that's just home field advantage, right? Why are people complaining about that? Why should anybody care about that?
It's not a secret, Amit. That what bugs me more than the home field advantage is why are you even talking about it? If you follow the game, everywhere in the world, we all know the subcontinent, it will be spinning. I mean, what is not rocket science? It's seaming in England, it bounces in Australia. Everybody knows that.
I mean, even tennis is the same, right? I mean,
Exactly.
in England, you have grass, and in US, you have hard court.
Yeah. So you know the conditions are. Would you come there and say, oh, the conditions were terrible against us? Exactly what you expected. Their own coach, Chetan Patel from New Zealand of Indian origin, he himself said, look, it's Indian wickets. What do you expect? We expect it to turn.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's the other guys like Mark Vaughan, a couple of others, I think Michael Vaughan, all the pundits, one-time players, they always like to rattle India a little bit. It's almost like they're teasing us. Like,
They know we are a reactive people, no?
Emotionally reactive. How dare you?
I'm sorry, but assuming that Mark Waugh is already popular on social media, you know that this has gotten him like big interactions, right?
I think that's the truth of everything. Controversial people are doing the controversial stuff only to raise their ratings. They may or may not mean what they say. So everybody's a politician. It's good to know, good to understand. I'm all happy with that. But coming back to the protest that isn't, got to be careful. Back in the day, Amit, when you and I were young kids, and I'm talking, this is before Mangal Pandey, somewhere in the 16th century. Do you remember strikes were so commonplace? The Datta Samant era, if I may dare say his name. And it was just commonplace. Things would just shut down. People would go on strike. And the great sense of democracy of India, as much as you hated it, was that we had strikes from Calcutta to deep south to deep north, wherever. Everywhere there were strikes, and there were strikes and protests in. Right. Nobody really bothered beyond the point. This is the way it was. Now we've reached a point where, by the way, you're not allowed to support the strike, talk of the strike, put the strike on air. I'm using the word strike because I don't want to use the word protest out of fear. So strike is the sister of protest, and I'm hoping that being the lady, they're treating her better. But it's the same thing. And I dare use the word agitation, who is the father of the same family. So I'm just, watering down.
Here I'll disagree with that, right? I mean, not a fan of the Modi government and the way that they are trying to push back against certain people who are striking, right? But at the same time, there are a million farmers which are striking at the border of Punjab right now, right? It's not like it's not allowed. Right, there are a million people doing this strike. The CAA strikes happened. These protests are happening. Yeah. It's not like they're stopping them in that sense.
Who's saying that it's not happening? My point is the entire. I will not take the name Disha Ravi. I'll call her Ravi Shastri instead, so that there's no trouble later. Ravi Shastri wants to help out with these toolkits or make a name for herself or whatever, half humane, half whatever. Who cares? My point is, in a democracy, why is she being arrested? It's just you're going the same Faruqi way. Why are you arresting her?
No, but
if I want to give water to Jesus on his way to be crucified, and I'm not saying this is the metaphor, I mean, that doesn't make you a criminal.
No, it doesn't.
So that is my worry. It's the satellites that have been shut down, not so much the agitators or whatever word we can use.
So the problem is this fundamental disrespect for speech, right?
That's what I want to talk about. If only you had said that phrase before, we'd have saved 10 minutes of conversation. Yeah.
But that's what it comes down to, right? I mean, whether it's Munawar Farooqi, whether it is Disha Rawat, whether it is so many other things, right? Whether it is the way that we react to the Rihanna tweet, all of this stuff is part of the same
also,
thing.
the reverse is the same thing. The psychophancy out of fear. So you will now, your tweets will be very pro-India, jingoism, God, how dare you attack us. You know that most of them are doing it out of fear. Which is the same thing, it's like free speech be damned. Let's get the right speech so that we can survive.
So I read an article in Caravan a couple of days ago, right? It was about Sachin Tendulkar and his the tweet that he made, right, in support of this, right? And but I really disagreed with the author over there because he was saying that Sachin is basically, he sucks up to whoever's in power, right? And I'm like, dude, he doesn't have a responsibility to this.
He stays neutral normally, even when he was in the Rajya Sabha.
Right.
No, that's then Rihanna doesn't either. Okay, let's put them in the same boat. Oh. These are people from society, neither of them being farmers, him being an Indian, that gives him some credibility and an icon. So the point is, they can comment. I have no problem with commenting. We should comment. It's a democracy. Please comment, even outsiders, global world.
Right.
Comment.
No, everybody should.
Your comment should not be based on the fact that your arm will be twisted one way or the other. Your comment should come from you. That's all I'm saying. I'm not even getting in who's right or wrong. Honestly, the laws aren't the worst laws. We've discussed that before. It's a question of it's mismanagement. Let's be honest. It's more mismanagement and not handling people properly. That's a real core issue rather than what it is.
No, but even more than mismanagement, right? So it's mismanagement in terms of the law itself, right? But the thing that is really aggravating right now, right, is a couple of things, right? One is this propensity to kind of shut down things at a speech level. Right, they shut the internet down in Haryana. I think it's back up again, right? But they shut the internet down in Haryana again. I mean, why is this the first reaction? Shut the internet down.
Which puts us in a parallel situation with Myanmar. And I don't want to be racist or nationalist or point and put down Myanmar. But let's face it, we're still not Myanmar. So let's not become Myanmar. You can't just do that. The army can't just take over and shoot on sight in 20 years for protesting and internet shut down. How dare you? It's our internet. You can't tell us what to do. I mean, all said and done, our semblance of democracy is there. My worry is the semblance must stay. I understand that democracy is a flawed concept and it's full of hypocrisy and paradoxes. And that's true of the West also. They have no right to point their finger at us. But we must have some semblance of it. So there's belief in a system and belief in the fact that you can at least appeal to the appellate system or through the different public platforms, which include the internet. That should be part of democracy. Banter, the ability to talk, joust, have debates. I thought that's what civil society was. That's what I read growing up. I wanted to be a human being only because of that. Otherwise, I'm happy to be a doggy. That if we have an alpha, we follow the alpha. You pee after the alpha pees. You eat after the alpha eats. That's it. Let's get it right. So we know we're on the same page. And it's a bit sad that powerful people like Sachin, who I adore, will have to. Because I don't think that's really him. I mean,
no, it's not. But here's the thing, right? The thing is that. So again, this my position on the Sachin thing is more of an anti-left position than an anti-right position in that sense.
Because you balance. But that's the beauty of democracy. You can on each issue.
I can. I can. Yeah, but I mean, in this case, I
applaud you for that, and now I want to fight you.
No, but see, the people on the left are saying this is the kind of an article I was reading, right? That Sachin basically does not put his thoughts forward, and how he's a guy who has a certain stature, and it's irresponsible for him.
Amit, I'll interrupt you there for a second. He's known to not call a spade a spade. He likes to play his cricket and stay in. He's known as against Dhoni or say Virat, who are more in your face and transparent in that sense. But that's okay. But again, it's a democracy. That's his style. But this is not his style. That's the whole point. This is not his style.
So the point that was being made in the article was simply that in this sense as well, right? That Sachin's stature is greater than Virat or Dhoni or any of those people, right? He is he's Michael Jordan for India, right? He's like the greatest athlete of all time we've ever had, right? And given that, for him to succumb to pressure like this from the government to make the tweet is not a great thing. But in my mind, it's his choice.
Well, up to this point was a comedy show, but now that you put it that way, India's first citizen buckles and succumbs. We're finished. We're over. You're right. You're totally right.
But is it succumbing? It's his choice, right?
So you're looking at it from this really democratic perspective, which is, I think, unreal. Mm-hmm. That, like we just discussed, you can be left on this issue, right on that issue. So why can't Sachin? On this issue, he seems right-minded, but many he's left. Yes, but the fact is, you see the record. It's like his batting statistics. You see the record. He doesn't put himself out there. It's not his style. he's like, okay, I don't get involved. That's his style. So that's the funny part.
Yeah, he's been an MP, but he is a non-political figure. Right? He's non-political in most aspects, right? Now, the way I would see it is that if somebody asks, if you're a non-political person and a political person asks you to do something, sometimes you'll say no, sometimes you'll say yes. If we had to do anything else, we had to impugn motives on him, and we don't know what were the conversations that occurred. We don't know
There's
what.
only one way out of this. You need to put him on our show.
Okay.
Right.
Invite
Antariksh, get it
him on our
done.
show.
Yes,
Yeah.
on it.
Silverie, by the way, you haven't spoken. What is it?
Talking about this Disha Ravi thing, no? Talking about the Disha Ravi thing, I also wanted to point out that so she's arrested, she's in jail, poor thing. The two activists who are wanted in the same case, they have non-bailable offences charged against them. So they are on the run. If they do get caught, they won't even get bail. So that's like a whole level of this thing. So now they'll be like, why did you avoid arrest? Why did you run away? Like, yeah, you're going to arrest me and not even give me...
Just for a moment, Silverie, to interrupt you, just explain what a toolkit is. I have it here if you guys want to hear. Okay?
Yeah, the toolkit is the Greta Thunberg farmers protest toolkit that she put out.
Yeah.
This is the protest toolkit that he put out to organize a protest better. This is like she tells you like these are the kind of hashtags you can use. At this time, the internet is like active, so you can like go and check out, try to trend this issue at this time, and this will be helpful. So like that kind of stuff. She breaks it down.
If you're looking at them as insurgents, then it's like Mein Kampf being published and follow the Nazi doctrine. So it's how you look at it. So
it's not Mein Kampf, right? Mein Kampf is more of a philosophical document. This is more of a like an agenda for things to do.
Yeah.
But the philosophy leads to the practical, logistical explanation that follows the philosophy. My point is, so is that aggressive posturing?
No, not really. It's not nefarious at all. This is just a thing that people do to organize protests better. And there's nothing wrong in organizing protests better.
When brands are doing campaigns, they have toolkits for their influencers. This is not nefarious. This is if you want to make noise online effectively, you must have some degree of coordination because you want to play the algorithms, right? I mean, like everybody knows some things about the Facebook and Twitter and Instagram algorithms. You want to play those algorithms a little bit.
If my carpenter had his toolkit, for God's sake, this office would be ready. No, listen, this is the other thing. I went on a tour. I can't mention where because it's prohibited. But behind me, I was told in 3 days everything will be done. It's not done. It's so irritating, man. Now it's going to carry on. I just asked them to not start till we finish the damn thing. And here I'm in a stark office. I look like I'm the guy who's supporting Disha Ravi. They've taken everything away from my office. I've got nothing behind. By the way, the really sad story here is it all happened on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
The day of love.
Oh,
they took her and her toolkit away. Why? Nothing sacred anymore. What the hell's going on? Yeah. No, I just want to ask one question of both of you, which is the toolkit, because you guys mentioned very clearly it's a do's and don'ts sort of thing. That sounds, I'll play devil's advocate, that sounds a little aggressive to me. It's like, okay, now this is how we take over the capital. Everybody gather here. At 10 o'clock, we raise our hand. 11 o'clock, we do this. That. So that seems to be a sort of modus operandi sort of dialogue thing, which in some ways is a what is the right word, dynamic sort of document.
It is not so this is how I would put it, right? It is a modus operandi. That's exactly what it is, right? But think of it this way, that if you want to do a large public event, right? You've done events over your life, right? Hundreds and hundreds of events you've done. Is there a difference between a well-coordinated event and a badly coordinated event?
Yeah, but it's almost no. Yeah, there is, but yeah, okay. So you're saying that the performance of the event.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is, right? A protest is an event, a strike is an event, right? And do you want to have a well-coordinated strike or do you want to have a poorly coordinated strike? A poorly coordinated strike will vanish.
Okay, then what are the charges of arresting her? What you're saying is you're trying to spruce up the event, make sure the performance of the event is up. If you're looking at it clinically and not emotionally, that's the idea, correct?
Right.
What would be the reason to arrest a person? Because it's showing support?
For not telling jokes is the same shit, right? I mean, like, honestly, it's the same bullshit.
Yeah.
There's no, it's a one-to-one correspondence in that stuff, right? She's being arrested for propagating a toolkit created by somebody else. This guy was arrested for not telling jokes. It's the same thing.
And it's also because they can't actually take any action against Greta Thunberg herself. They're like, oh, what's the next best thing? Oh, these activists who have been circulating this. We got them. They're right here.
But now in a Miss India contest this year, if any woman says, I want to be Greta Thunberg, she'll be shot. Shot on stage. I've got this in writing. So you have to be very careful. You're right. Even the role models will be controlled. What's happening, man?
Yeah.
There's a lot of control happening which is beyond our control. What a horrible paradox.
It's, I mean, like, this is the stuff that really drives me nuts about the government, right? Because, I mean, like, it's not all nonsense, right? I mean, like in the sense that there are good policies that are being pushed by them, but you have to stand with people.
I totally agree with you that whatever good that's happening, the fact that the country is still cohesive and kept together, which is good considering how big we are, all that goes out of the window when you have these ridiculous PR exercises which go wrong for me. Which is not just a Western press, it's everybody. Even people feel disenfranchised and disconnected after some time because it's like, what the hell? This young girl from Bangalore is giving a toolkit. She's in jail. Is she Dawood bloody Ibrahim? I mean, what are you talking about? Just a kid who's got a point of view and they want to support the point of view. Democracy is about point of view, then the collision of that. And then you have a civil way of settling it, and that's how you follow a process. How do you think I got married? Lost in the Supreme Court, though.
But there's just this. There is a. I don't even understand, because it's not like they don't care, right? It's not like the government doesn't care about international perception. They do, but they're doing such a
The big guy cares a hell of a lot. I don't know below him, but the big guy cares a hell of a lot. He wants to leave his mark on the world.
But then you can't do this kind of stuff, right? Because it's not like, you can intimidate India. You can't intimidate internationally.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, after Sachin, let's make a shout out to the BJP. If anybody wants to come and talk to us, we will help with the PR. Because I have no spine, so it's easy for me to, swing this way or that. So if BJP government wants a little help from our side, we know how to fix the problem where you look good and you can continue doing what you want. I mean, could you have just arrested Disha for something else, like not being Indian? I mean, just change a passport quality. Then we can't argue. But this is a little ridiculous. Passing out a toolkit, supporting what looks like rich establishment versus poor farmer. And unfortunately, I hate to give a parallel from my life, but Bakra, we used to get criticism all the time. It's like English-speaking westernized Indians taking on, urban Indians like ourselves, taking on people who, have a different life and economic strata and culturally different. And then when I looked at it, sometimes it was that, because again and again and again is a guy on the road versus the guy who lives in a 4-bedroom house, which is nothing big in the West. But in India, it's your PMO standard. You're big, you're huge.
It's crazy though. Like, why doesn't our government or people in authority understand that the more you try to suppress these kind of topics, the more they will come out? That if you just stop being so aggressive towards them, it might just die down. That should be your strategy.
See, and the English-speaking or even Hindi-speaking comedy world is not that large as of now. But they influence millions of people, and some of them will really influence millions of people, and they will influence millions of people. It's a domino effect which will happen. The farmer movement also, understand it, right now it looks like North Indians and Punjab, Haryana types are trying to support them. But there are a lot of people from other states who are slowly thinking, hey, listen, this is a human rights issue. This is not right. You argue the point, but don't twist their arm. Twisting the arm is the problem. I don't know. I think that the PR lesson is required. Amit, you, me, and Silverie have to talk to the BJP management. We are the only ones who can help, because I think with the success, sometimes the idea is that the success of the last election is that, listen, we don't listen to anyone. We just do it.
Yeah.
In some cases, it may work. But after some time, it's like the line between democracy and fascism is so blurred now that honestly, you can just swing within a few seconds this way or that.
So we had Veer Sanghvi on Maruk Inayat's show, The Note, and he was mentioning this to an extent, right?
And he's never been seen again.
Well, so far so good. The episode just came out yesterday. But what he was mentioning was this idea, right, that a democracy, even if you are a total majority of it, right, you're an absolute majority, a democracy is still a coalition. You have to have a big tent, right? And the thing is, right now, the way that the government is acting, it's not acting like a coalition. It's not trying to bring people along with them. Like, honestly, man, I can't believe this farm thing is becoming such a problem here, and they're losing support the way they are, because the laws, the ideas behind it make sense.
Yes, but you have to have a soft touch. Soft touch is more important. It's like this: if I want to train my son to not become an alcoholic, I can't hit him with a bottle all the time, right? I've got to figure out a way to reach him.
Exactly.
I know that we both know, he probably knows it, that, my thought is the better one. But I have to find a way where everybody feels happy to come to the table.
Yeah.
It sounds cliche, but that's the challenge of democracy. That's why it's democracy, right? Otherwise, you go switch into your way is your way and everybody has to follow it.
There are stakeholders to all of this kind of stuff, right? All this kind of stuff has stakeholders to it. And when you ignore the people who have a stake in an outcome of an issue, right, you're going to get this, right? Because, I mean, like, they're not feeling heard, right? And, maybe they might have some points which make sense for softening out the laws that are created. But you don't know that because you never had these discussions.
We'll discuss in detail another day, but it's also to do with the implementation, which they are not they're insecure about.
Yeah.
We'll have to sit and do this. We'll have to get an expert to explain the laws. We really should. We really should. Because everybody talks big without getting to specifics. Specifics is everything. No point telling me the wheel's turning, unless you're turning on this rough where the left-hander is going to exploit it.
Let's try and ask if we can get Vivek call on. Vivek has written a bunch of stuff on this stuff. Really good
Let's
stuff.
Get Vivek call on. And tell Vivek that because he's a leftist journalist, he'll get nothing, not even a pakoda from us. Because that's his way. Once you choose your path, young man, you survive it and suffer it. I think enough. Move to the next topic, brother. We've nearly finished half the show.
Yeah, should we take a break and then come back to the next topic?
I think we should. But will you tell me something beautiful before you go, Silverie?
Cyrus,
were you sexually active this weekend? Were you sexually active? No, that's not good.
Man, I wasn't.
You were?
No, I wasn't. I have to say that because again, my mother listens to this show.
Oh, damn it.
So because the thing is,
why is your mother listening to our show?
2 weeks back, I said on the podcast that I've had 4 relationships in my life. So after the podcast, my mother comes out and you had 4 relationships in your life? I'm like, what are you expecting?
Point to note, we want transparency with the government and other forces in society, not between mother and son. It's awkward and painful for everyone.
Exactly.
All right? So we never tell the truth after this. What you should have done is you should have just told us when I'm irritating you like that you've had 35 relationships. And your mom knows you're laughing and you're over the lunch.
No, my mother will believe that, dude. My mother will be like, what? 35 relationships you had? Like, yesterday it was 4. You're 35 in one day.
Your parents are like the government, no sense of humor. What's going on?
Exactly.
You make a remark, you have to pay for it. Oops, yes. Ouch. We'll take a break. Auntie, sorry, a lot of respect. We'll take a break and then come back.
We live in an age of disruption, of immense change in every aspect of work, life, and business. But is the old way of doing things truly dead? And are we ever going to stop saying the new normal? Join me, Varun Dugirala, on Advertising is Dead every Tuesday as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, creators, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond to dig a little deeper into how we got here, what we're doing now, and where we're headed. You can catch all the episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IBM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.
Okay, we're back here. I don't know how we switched from the agitation and protest and democratic values and the core competence of a government vis-a-vis a state and what the rights of citizens are vis-a-vis a government into the sex life of a 25-year-old monkey who lives in Powai, whose mother listens to the show. So now he's on thin ice. He's in a critical state. He's almost a guy who needs the vaccine as quickly as possible. Man, why is your mom still having these conversations with you in your mid-20s?
I don't know, man. It's very sad.
You know what my mom did? Yeah. My mom once famously did, I hope she never watches the podcast, I had a girlfriend and we had relations. I was legal. I was over 12 or whatever the right age is in India. Changes with each government. And I came back and on the mirror of my bathroom was a note saying, please put away used condoms in the dustbin.
What?
Bro, the note. So I told my girl, this is a note. She said, I'm never coming to the house. I'm never coming. And I could make eye contact with my own mother, imagine. And I'm just like, I'm a proper ladla. I went around, put the note away, and then my mom said, okay, lunch or whatever. And I'm like, There's a killer one. Stayed in my head forever. And the poor girl,
I would think so.
Weeks to come back. You can't, that remark is playing in your head, so it just stays in your head. You can't deal with it. You meet the person.
Yeah.
But that's democratic. There's a sense of democracy there because she didn't give me a judgment call. She just said, please put it more like, here's a practical issue. It's a house. I'm trying to keep it clean. Do this. There was no judgment call. But unfortunately, there was a judgment call, but it must be
also, how old were you at this time, you said?
I was in college, 20, 21.
So she also wanted to ensure the use of safe sex, right? She didn't want a grandkid.
If my house is not interested in safe sex, they would just want you to keep it clean, especially someone who's untidy.
No, and also that is kind of a judgment call, though. She doesn't like used condoms, your mother.
Yeah, true. Well, I've spoken about your mother. You want to take it up a peg, don't you? You don't have to say rules.
Okay. Should we get to? We were talking about democracy in India. Let's get to democracy in another neighboring country, Myanmar. Their coup is still going on. Their military has tried to suppress, again, similar to our government, trying to suppress people from speaking out against it.
No. I'll give India a shout out here.
Yeah, please.
It's much worse. Silverie,
theirs is much worse. For
going
sure.
in that direction, but please go and stay in one of these countries. I won't mention countries I've been to, where in 5 minutes you say, okay, however bad India is, please take me back there. Because let me tell you, this is 20 years for protesting. You come on the street and shout, anti-Janta or Junta, as it's pronounced, the words. 20 years, literally, if they remain in power 20 years for saying we want Aung Suu Kyi back or whatever. I mean, really? I mean, rape is 12 years there. I mean, what's the point? I think it's monstrous. It's sad that we have so many more examples, but India, still there's hope, if you ask me. What do you say, Amit?
No, 100%. So it's a different level of oppression, right? You can't compare what's happening in this country to like a military dictatorship. It's just not the same thing. You
and I can have this podcast there. I know podcast goes on the world internet, etc., and screw that. But nobody in Myanmar can do this. They must be dying of fear.
So, you know what? I was listening to something really interesting. It was a slightly older episode. It was a podcast called Solvable. And they were talking about just moderation policies on social media platforms, right? And it was really bizarre. What came up was, so this was like a 6-8 month old podcast, right? At the episode I was listening to, they were talking about Myanmar, and they were talking about the fact that the Facebook Basics, I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was a plan that was being put in place in India as well before Geo came out, where they were going to try and give internet to, where Facebook was going to fund internet to almost anybody. Free internet, but limited internet.
Geo bought out Facebook.
I remember this. It was like their Facebook websites would load quicker.
So the basic idea behind it was that we'd give you free internet, but we would not give you the entire internet.
Yeah.
We'd give you all the Facebook services. We'd give you Wikipedia. We'd give you like maybe another, 50, 60, 70 services that sign up with them, right?
Basically, monopolize your internet. Let's look at it from the right perspective.
Yeah, but they were giving it for free, right? So, I mean, like there was a trade-off.
Amit, but you're giving me only one thought.
Yeah, but no, it did not preclude somebody like you or me or Antariksh or anybody else from buying our own internet and getting whatever we wanted, right? This was meant as a kind of entry gateway. So, I mean, like I look at it like that in that sense, but the unintended problems from it have kind of crept up in Myanmar, right? Because today in Myanmar, the internet that everybody is used to is only Facebook and Facebook services, right? And a few other things besides that. And it made it very, very easy for the government to clamp down. Like very easy to clamp down, right? Because all of a sudden you just have to cut off a couple of services.
You don't have a multi-market. You only have a single market. So it's much easier. Yeah, so they must have thought that through. But that was under Aung San Suu Kyi.
It was. Again, I mean, like, she complicated figure, right? Let's just put it that way. She got a ton of acclaim for the fact that she spent 20 years in jail. And since she's come out of jail...
I don't think you can argue her Mandela years. Her Mandela years are her Mandela years.
They are, exactly.
The Rohingya thing that happened is in the last few years.
Yeah.
Now, why and how that happened, the sad part is that it's like we talk about dogs and people say selective loving, my dog, not your dog. So I know who are animal lovers and who aren't. Just from the extension of the ego, loving your animal is not an animal lover. When you love all animals, you're an animal lover. So if you're a humanitarian, the humanity has to go beyond people who look exactly like you, right? Yeah. Otherwise, what are you talking about? I mean, it's just like, it's selective. Maybe we all are like that.
Listen, she's a
competent. She's won the Peace Prize. You expect more.
You do expect more. But again, think about how delicate the balance of that country was, where military decided, fuck you, we're done, and boom.
So it's a Trotsky point. It's the same Trotsky point. When you come to power, everything is different. It's like the Shiv Sena.
Yeah.
You can play one role fine, but when you come to power, what the hell do you do? Now it's so easy to bark and scream and shout and whatever from the outside. But on the inside, you got to sort it out. Yep. Then you got to figure out which is the less poisonous fruit.
I mean, there's no excuse for...
Well, what would you do?
I have no idea. I honestly, I don't know. I would think that, I would have a problem with killing hundreds of thousands of people. I don't think I'd be okay with that. But at the same time, I don't.
What do you do?
That's the question, right? Because
she ran out of options. I'm not saying this. This will sound terrible to say, but in her mind, if she ran out of options, or she realized she's reached where she has reached, and there has to be a compromise, you got to cut something to save the body. Right? Look, again, I'm not endorsing it. Please be very clear about that. I'm just trying to think in her mind what happened to a person.
No, but this is moral bravery, right? This is where moral bravery comes in. This is where
choice twisted more.
But who knows how you're going to react when you come to this kind of this, right? We all want to say, yeah, I will do the heroic thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, you never know, right? I mean, like, Sachin Tendulkar tweeted.
Brother, when push comes to shove is when you're exposed, right? Unless push comes to shove, we can all put on an act. Yep. I'm a very happy, hilarious person, but the moment you take away my flight timings and tell me I'm not sure when the flight's leaving, I go berserk. I become like a Rottweiler. I start humping your leg, and not out of pleasure. So
I remember there was I read this in a book somewhere. I think principles are easy unless they're tested, right?
But isn't that is exactly your point? Is exactly the point of how the opposition comes to power and then finds it a whole new game.
Yeah.
Being a rebel is one thing, but a rebel sometimes just can't work in a non-rebellious position. Whether it's Che Guevara or Trotsky, Aung San Suu Kyi, and there were so many more cases. The Shiv Sena the first time wrong. So they suddenly had to now stop people from stoning on Valentine's. They didn't know what to do. Back in the day. Of course, now we live in a country where the Shiv Sena, the moderates, Parsis and minorities vote for them, and the BJP is looked upon as the hard-line party. I mean, really, it's all over the place.
The
really.
world is flipping.
How it switched from the 80s in the world of
but Shiv Sena also has that DNA, right? They definitely continue to have that DNA.
It's been hijacked. They don't have a choice.
Oh, well, no, but they still do, right? I mean, what investigations did they just open right now?
Just trying to put the signage in Marathi, which every political party does, isn't enough. So, trying to, we have the same iconic figures across Maharashtra, names I won't take. And, saluting that is not, the point is they realize that the game is not about that anymore because they're in power. When you're not in power, you can rouse everybody. The only people who manage to still continue this way with the two treaty sort of position is the BJP, where they haven't, completely moderated themselves. In parts they have, but in parts they haven't. And that's where we stand.
It's a large party, right? So there's always the excuse, cadre. We can't control the cadre.
That's exactly. That's probably also somewhat true. Especially when a quick jerk reaction happens somewhere in another state. It's not like it's gone through center. It's not like, emails have been sent all over and a committee has been formed. It's happened. Then they have to figure out whether they back it or don't back it.
But I think that comes from the kind of culture they present, right? That comes from the kind of tonality of the what comes from near the top, right? I mean, when you kind of continuously hear stuff which affirms the worldview where you're allowed to act in these majoritarian ways.
I blame Donald Trump a little bit for this. From 16 onwards, I think a lot of right-wing leaders or leaders who led towards right but weren't fully right started thinking, this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Just don't accept criticism. Firstly, which is the point in which democracy dies. You cannot accept criticism. It's just like an actor who you can't tell him he's had a bad performance. I mean, what's the point? There's no end to it. Live in a bubble where people are all nice to you. There's no point to it. So, or maybe it's a failed concept. Let's just give up.
Can we talk about one more topic before we get to the AMAs? There are two that we should be getting to, but I don't know if we have enough time. One is the vaccination drives, and one is the UP government's new stance on porn. And
this is the UP fast because vaccine we can keep talking about in case you run out of time.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Go ahead.
So the UP government has basically started a new initiative to start curbing the viewership, people who browse for porn and obscene content on the internet.
And not necessarily minorities or people from a different structure.
No, that's not it. So anyone in the entire state, if they were to watch porn, an SMS notification would show up to a cop, to their equivalent of the IT cell, whatever is handling that. And the person who is watching porn also will get an SMS intimation
saying, cops get to watch porn. While studying porn to catch you. So in a way, it's a happy day for all.
It's basically giving, I don't know, maybe they'll give the cop the link. He went to this link and then the cops can go to that link and check it out.
How can they control 200 million plus UPIs?
That is insane.
Let's say if 20% of them are using it or 10% are using it. Are you telling me 20 million people you can sort of,
you can deal with that? No, but also just from a pure technical perspective, I don't understand how they're going to do this, right? Because does this mean that where are they finding out that somebody is surfing porn, right? I mean, where do they find that out? They find that out at the ISP level?
They hired a new
team. They come to your house.
Yeah, I saw they hired some company, but they always hire companies to do shit, right? It doesn't mean that the companies know how to do this stuff, right? It could just as easily be a boondoggle, which is some sort of this. Because the only way that I can see that you can do this, right, is by, I don't even know how, right? Because a lot of,
the numbers are staggering. I can't understand how you can do a conduit kind of thing where you could collectively get this data and you're going to act on it. Even if you can get the data, of course you can get the data parts, but how do you act on it? 20 million people, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to 30,000 soldiers or guys working under you. Also, the question we're asking are the wrong ones. We should ask, what would be the genre of porn that UPIs like better than, say, the others? I think that would be a better way to understand each other and our cultures better. So that when you go, Silverie, to Lucknow, you'll be watching the appropriate porn. Just like everybody else to fit in. For example, if it's to do with bears, then you're also watching porn with bears. These are the questions that open-minded society should have.
The reason they're giving is because this will help in reducing crimes against women, is what they're saying. But
in the famous rape case where the body was taken away from the parents and given a burial according to their own decisions.
Yep.
If you remember about a year back,
Yeah.
and parents weren't allowed to it. So obviously they have got a good record. All
Yeah.
good.
So this is a direct quote from police representative. He said, the internet data will inform 1090 team, that's the team that has been hired, will inform the 1090 team if a person is searching for porn. The team will then send awareness messages to the person. By doing this, the crime will be stopped at the initial process itself. What does that mean? Do you think the person, after receiving that message, is not going to continue watching porn?
But the name is all wrong. They should have a name like Sanskriti Samna or Parampara Bachao or something like that. I mean, this is not working for me. It's just stupid numbers. 1090.
The company that has been hired is called Oomph. OOMUPH. Oomph or Oomph.
Sounds like a website. I will take it out right now.
Yeah, I know. But this whole thing makes no sense, right? It just makes no sense. It's like it's invasive to an insane degree, and if to be effective, it has to be so invasive.
Yeah.
It is essentially they are tapping every single person in UP preemptively.
And what's hilarious is the only people
you're in
who
a public toilet somewhere and a cop is knocking on your door. You know,
and it's trivial to break it. The kind of thing that they're talking about right now, it is trivial to bypass it, right? I mean, like literally anybody could bypass it with like 2 minutes of instruction.
Yeah.
But the option is they can shut down the internet. Simple.
Well, that is what they want to do anyway, right?
Yeah.
That's how you survive democracy when you're in power. Shut down the internet. Internet is really a pain in the ass if you're in power. Thinking about it, because even if you're doing good things or seemingly good things, there's enough choots out there who are going to be like, I hate that.
Yeah.
It's just there to irritate people. And now I'm beginning to like the internet. Internet's like me, but technology. You can say the contrary thing and irritate. The contrarian philosophy. I love it. Hello, boys. What's next?
All right, let's get to the AMAs.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another very special week on the IVM Podcast Network. Before I get to that, let me quickly thank our sponsors on the network this week. Storytel, thewholetruthfoods.com, and we have a new sponsor in Syed. Thank you all so much for being part of the network. So, this is Valentine's week, and we have a bunch of stuff for you guys. So I'm going to give you a couple of episodes that you could definitely catch up with. Agla Station, Season 2, Episode 12, Be Our Valentine. Ritasha and Ayushi have a little bit of talk about love and all the rest of the stuff that goes wrong with that. On The Habit Coach, Episode 396, Ashton Doctor did an episode which went into the much-debated origins of Valentine's Day. Also, do check out Candid Kannan with Siddharth Kannan featuring Govinda and his wife Sunita Ahuja. He talks to them about amazing 33 years together. But you know what, folks? If you want to hear more about these Valentine's Day things, what I suggest is go to our webpage, ivmpodcast.com/blog. And on the blog, we're going to post a bunch of different playlists that we've created for all the various major services. So if you're feeling in the mood for love, do check that out. You'll definitely enjoy it. Just a quick note on a few other noteworthy episodes this week. Nankari Kunal Vijayakar was the guest. They spoke about street food with him. On Simplified, they talk about vaccinating 1 billion people, then the logistical and administrative task in front of us. And on the Wire Talks, Siddharth talks to Devdutt Mukhopadhyay about the human cost of internet shutdowns. And with that, let me get you back to your show.
Follow me at Instagram and Twitter on Bored Brocha. I'm so bored, I need your help. I need your love. I need your touch. Okay, just follow me.
All right. First one comes in from VB. He says, is there a toolkit about what I should tweet and what I should not so that we are safe?
Superb. Who said this?
VB. That's the
VP, well done. Please write for us. Excellent. Super piece of satire. I respect it a lot immediately. Well done. Because it actually works on so many levels. Because you guys have just mentioned that it's all do's and don'ts in any case. So fair enough. Yeah. I'm all for it. What do you say, Amit?
Yeah, easy enough to create a toolkit for that, no?
Yeah.
It's good to know that there are like-minded people out there who can see the funny side of all this. Because sometimes I get worried the sense of humor has been developed so much that, it'll be pointless trying to have a conversation with another person over it in the lighter vein. Lighter vein is almost removed from our constitution now.
Yeah, it's not.
Do you guys do that? Do you ever check who you're talking to now? Like,
always, constantly.
Yeah.
Like the way we are freewheeling, three of us, would you do it with just anybody? No, right?
No, but even over here, we're talking in public, right? So it's not like you're giving your unadulterated thoughts, right? You're always kind of, okay, let me not say this because this could be a problem. Let me not say this because this could be a problem.
Everybody's pre-scripted and written by you, Amit. So I'm off the hook. I've got a disclaimer that plays 5 minutes before you guys come on. I've got a bunny rabbit behind me with an American gentleman's voice for some reason. Yeah.
All right. Next one comes in from Sharang Bidkar. He says, "Hi Cyrus, Amit, Silverie. With the Mumbai locals opening, do you think there will be a third wave? Plus, schools and colleges are also supposed to be opening. Shouldn't there be an option to take risk?"
Yeah, the worry for me is this variance which has come in the so-called South Africa and England and places like that, where the vaccine is not, the older vaccines are not responding to at all. It's like 10%, 20% efficacy with the variant. But what else to do? If you don't open the trains, how does society go forward? Give the solution. Give the government the solution. Sometimes you got to hand it to whoever's in power. This is the best of the worst. What else can we do?
We've been shut for a year at this point. I mean, like, can we continue like this?
You're working, Amit. It's a social issue now for me. You're working. Yeah. You've worked and you've actually done this touch wood decently well. What happened to that guy who can't reach his office from Nala Supara?
Yeah.
I mean, how long? A, he gets his money cut. B, he may lose his job. And C, what about his mental state? Yeah. He's sitting and listening to his ugly wife all day, telling him, "Saaf karo, safai karo, saaf karo." Come on. Oh, that's
but I mean, like, I know that we have this issue in our office as well. There are people who are just, they can't sit at home anymore. They need to get out.
Like Silverie, who with all his sex toolkits. Like, oh, sorry, mom's listening. Just toolkit.
Sorry, mummy. Yeah.
Sorry, mummy.
Yeah. Okay. Next one comes in.
We'll change the show to Sorry, Mummy. It sounds better. We can kill the drab seriousness of our show. Sometimes it goes on for 5 minutes and we just apologize.
Yeah, no, I think once a week we can do an episode called Cyrus Says Sorry, Mummy. And then we just apologize to my mother.
How they screwed up with their mothers. You know, some awkward moment. I've got so many.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That'd be funny. Yeah. All right. This next one comes in from Karan Sethi. This is for Amit. He says, Amit, what would you say are the American equivalents of MLA and Chief Minister? Is that?
Chief Minister would be governor.
And MLA
would be state legislator of some nature.
Congressman or senator, right?
Yeah. No, congressman would be, congressman senator would be Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha.
Yeah, okay.
But MLA would be like a state senator, I think, or a state legislator.
Yeah. So let's call them junior senators. All right. Fair enough.
Okay. Shruti S.
Why are you asking you questions that they could have Googled?
I know.
This is the show where we want stupid, awkward, silly, reverse style questioning. If you ask me a question like, how tall is the African elephant? What am I supposed to say? Yeah. You know? Taller than me. That's the answer.
So, the Shruti question does look interesting, right? Do you see similarities between the current government and the Indira Gandhi government?
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, if you look around the world, there are acts of transgression against a society which has been committed by leaders in power all the time. By drawing parallels, I don't see how it helps anyone. We're living in the present. We're trying to say that, oh, please accept what we're doing. This has been done before and you didn't say anything then. That logic doesn't appeal to me at all. You know, then is then. We live in this moment. Let's live in this moment. I can't look back at Rome burning and say, okay, Nero might have had a point there because there were some ugly statues. Got rid of them. The way I see it, you know, but they do this. This is a way to spin conversation. Always bring in history. Bring in history to endorse your situation in the right way. And then the other person is wondering, oh, you're right, we didn't really criticize that moment in history, so why are we going after you? Really? I mean, what's the point? We live now. This is it. A kid whose name I can't take, Ravi Shastri. Ravi Shastri has been bullied and put in a jail. I mean, there's no bail, non-bailable for this so-called toolkit thing. I mean, it's murder, treason. I mean, what are you talking about? It's just a strike, end of the day, just an agitation, and people are upset and they're angry and they want to talk to the government. That's the perspective I see, and that's how it should be. And you sit across the table, have a conversation, eat some farm products at reduced rates, bought from all farmers, and get on with it.
I agree with you.
Antariksh will need mummy to save the show.
Cool.
There's too much lecturing going on.
Jannat Nain has a few interesting questions as well. She says, this is a slightly long one. She says, why don't we taxpayers hold the government accountable for where our money is being spent? India spends less than 2% of taxpayer money on public healthcare, and US taxpayers go to private hospitals instead. And on top of that, our money pays for the police, yet we hire security guards for every building we live in. Why? What are we even paying for?
I tell the police when they stop my car, I always say, but I'm paying for your salary. And they say no. Every time
they always say no. Yes.
They always say no, you're not. And we have an argument, but they just won't accept it. I say, I pay your salary, so you should actually do what I tell you. But it doesn't work that way.
Sadly. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. The government is by design kind of kept separate from direct tax right? You pay taxes to one department, government services are deployed by different departments. It's by design, right? I think this idea that just because we pay taxes, that means that we should have more say so than people who don't pay taxes is nonsense. I don't buy into that at all. I think everybody has a say. That's part of what we're living in, right? That's the country that we live in. I've never enjoyed that.
Amit, again, you're getting here. The specifics are wrong and not important. Although you're right, for me it's not important, because what is the point of the specifics? The point here is that there's a role between police and us, between the bureaucracy and us, between the acts and pillars of the government and us. And we must understand that both ways. They must also understand that there's a role between them and us. And we must be allowed to communicate.
Better behavior should not come because you pay taxes. Better behavior should come to people who don't pay taxes as well.
True.
Right?
That is true.
And the entitlement that because we pay taxes, you owe us is something I've always been a little uncomfortable with. You owe us because you're public servants.
Tax is too much. I want something for it. Honestly, this is pretty too much. I should be allowed to call the policeman and say, "Gadi park karo, please. I'm in a hurry." Something like that. You give me something. Give us, throw crumbs to us. Silverie, what do you feel?
I agree.
With who? With
Cyrus.
With
Cyrus. I feel that we should
Silverie,
be able to.
You, young socialist comic, don't agree with me on my one socialist thought in the world.
It's almost that young and socialists do go together around the
They
world.
do.
Yeah. Then suddenly you become a capitalist.
Young, woke socialist comic. Let me add the woke word in there.
Yeah, sure.
There you go. That's spot on. Yeah. But
I'm amazed. This is the one really socialist position I have whenever we discuss something.
There's a rider here. Me and Silverie self-drive. Amit, you still don't self-drive at the moment yet. When you self-drive, you'll come to our point of view. The problem is when you have brushes with people, after some time you realize that there's a huge disconnect between the forces.
Dude, I self-drove for 27 years, from age of 14 to the age of 42.
I was a bachelor for 29 years, but I've forgotten what it's like.
Okay.
I have no idea what it is to get up in the morning and not put your clothes away neatly. So I miss all that. Really. God, what did you started? Silverie, if your mom's listening, you need to get married. This is the age where a good Punjabi boy finds a nice Punjabi girl, hopefully from Canada, so you can go there.
Oh, that's
in Toronto.
Correct. Yeah, fun.
Are you thinking of doing that?
No, not going to Canada.
You can take Munawar Farooqi with you and do comedy.
Oh man, I don't think he'll be allowed to travel, by the way, for the next few years.
What are your parents' views on Munawar Farooqi?
My parents think he actually made the joke. There's no video. My parents think, they were like, there's an actual joke, right? He made fun of Hindu gods. I'm like, no, listen to the joke. You'll understand. He didn't say anything. If you're talking about that particular joke, you're talking about that show, they did nothing wrong in the show.
No, we're talking about that joke, the joke on the song.
My parents, especially my father, I'm sure he actually haven't talked to him about this. My mother was was kind of like explaining away the police's behavior in this regard. But my father, I don't know if he's seen it, but if he does see it, I know for a fact that he'll just go, so he said that, so you'll get arrested only. And then I'll say, what if this happens to me tomorrow? What if I make a joke and I get arrested? Exactly. Like, why will you make these jokes? Why are you talking about these jokes? I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? That's not...
Join the family business, idiot. Oh, God. This is what scares me a lot of.
Yeah, that brings me to a great question asked by Jannat Nain. She says, do you think parents will start telling their children to stop taking interest in any form of social activism because of what is happening?
100%. Parents don't like it anyway, right?
Parents don't like it anyway.
Yeah, definitely when it's a public protest, a proper public protest, you're going out there do things, they'll be like, why do you have to? That kind of thing. I'm sure. I would be a little scared if my kids went out and they're going to be water tanks or water cannons or whatever you call them. But that fear of the police being oppressive is, and you're wrong place, wrong time, and something can happen to you, obviously. I believe you should fight only for things that you really, really believe in, like less oil in butter chicken. Get something which you really can get behind. Don't save the world.
What's the solution to too much oil? Mix it in or pour it out?
I'm not the guy who can answer that question, but I am the connoisseur. And I fight with everybody about this. It's like 1%, 2% difference in grease or oil, whatever the right word is, which just changes the food.
It does.
Because you need it, Amit. You need the oil. I'm not denying that. But then there's a point where I don't know why they do it, to save money maybe with the ingredients and there's more oil and less everything else. But it loses in that 5%. There's a balance.
No, but that's where you go from good to bad, right? I mean, like that is the amount of oil that sits on top of butter chicken after it's kept out for a minute and a half is the key indicator of whether it's good or bad. Too much oil means bad in my mind, at least.
Yeah, no, you're right. I argue this point with people who know the quality of the chicken or the paneer or whatever. It's not the quality of anything. It's purely the amount of oil.
Yeah. No, so I've been out with people where they say, okay, the oil has come out. It's fine. Just mix it back and it'll be great. And then I tell you people who pour it out.
You have friends who take the paper over the food and sort of remove oil and grease from
I've done that myself sometimes. I do that with some dishes.
Does it make a difference?
It does. I think it tastes better when it's without it like that.
So at least print business will survive. If we can, push this as a thought.
Well, no, not really. I would just pour it out, right? I mean, I'm not like using paper. I'm just like taking a small bowl, pouring it, and
I just have a mental note of where the oil is too much, and I try not to get it from there again.
Yeah,
it's simple.
The last one comes in from Abhijit. Okay, before that, S. Kumar has said we want another Cyrus Aisha episode, which is coming up this week, later in this week, guys.
As usual, I have no control. I'm here the agitation, and she's like the government. I told her something, she said yes, and then didn't turn up. And then she told me, okay, I'm going to be honest here, and you can ask her when we do the show finally. I swear my mother, what I'm saying is true. So please don't say, you're trying to make fun of your wife. I was out of the country. You guys know where I was. I still coordinated it. And I told her Tuesday, I'm coming back Monday evening. Tuesday, we're doing this thing because it's closest to Valentine's Day. Makes sense. Last night, I reminded her because Silverie sent me a ton of messages. I said, Aisha, so remember 10 o'clock, you have to sit in a room away from me and we have to do this. I'm going for a massage. It's already booked. That was her reply. Right now, she's having a massage. And we're trying to... So this is a life, and people say Garib Desh. When you hear statements like this, how can we promote Garibness in this country? I don't know what to say. Nowhere in the world do you hear statements like this. In bloody Germany with all their money or whatever, nobody says, I'm going to massage, so I can't do the show. It sounds wrong. So when she comes on, I want you guys to ask her about the massage. Because I just think it's ridiculous, the lack of respect for whatever little work I do and whatever little work we're trying to push. And we're trying to push this show by doing a live. She knows it means both personally and business-wise, something that, one takes seriously. And this is what I get out of it. And if I dare say I don't understand her painting, I count to 7 now when she asks me to look at painting. I never count less. And this is a trick that will work because if you do too much, Amit, you're exposed. By the way, hello. Go to an exhibition and be the guy who keeps on staring. You're an idiot. Nobody keeps on staring. There's a 7 count point. You watch it, count slowly. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I make a comment. That means you got something from it. Immediately you can say, the pastels seem a little bright, but I can see just a generic comment like that and you're in. That's how I survived marriage. My wife is really an artist. Comments sound like an artist. I'm just a businessman who's pretending to be an artist. Failed in both is another story. So coming soon, Valentine's special, Aisha versus Cyrus. Please watch. Guided by match referee Amit Doshi and Silverie. Let's see how long they last. Always remember, I'm the good brocha. Whatever the hell that means.
Okay, last question. Comes from Abhijit. He says, for Cyrus, how do you know where and how to draw the line while filming the week that wasn't in a way that can be effective and yet not offend anyone in power?
Okay, let's be honest. We are very cowardly now. We are on a TV channel. So not only we're cowardly, we had 2 skits pulled out. Navika Kumar, Times of India skit, where Kunal plays her because we have no other woman. And one on the WhatsApps, which the WhatsApps are like our show. The WhatsApp that wasn't. That's clearly what the government put out. So I got to tell you, in the podcast or on the internet, we have some chance of being open and free. But on television, there are rules and laws. But I don't have a problem with that. I think of it this way. This is their work. This is their factory. Got to pay by their rules. So I leave it there. And hopefully the podcast will allow us to make more. I'm trying to push the podcast on it.
I can see. Thank you very much.
Free and fair views, etc., etc. The last bastion of the Mohicans who will speak openly and talk a lot of bullshit because you and I keep apologizing to everyone to save us. But television, as you know, Silverie, your generation just urinates on it. It's just the way it is. If you want to be part of that, there are rules, you got to follow that. And that's where we stand. But it's enjoyable because you have to try and write and make your points without going berserk or being openly offensive. Sometimes it's much easier to just be openly offensive and just have an argument. So there's an innovative point to it.
It would be. It's easier to just say stuff straight up, right? When you have to couch it in different ways and stuff, it's an exercise in creativity.
That's what satire, I suppose, is. I mean, look back at the great satirists of the world, if you not to lecture anyone, they've always had oppressive regimes for which they were able to find their way through. And that's the beauty and genius of their great talent. Of course, beauty and genius, 2 words you can't use with me. But we do what we can in a limited edition. But Silverie, to answer your question, I don't think anyone should get onto a television channel and say, oh, they treated me badly. Television channel means you're working for somebody. It's a very common. What do you think, Amit?
I agree.
What are you supposed to do?
There are the mediums have norms. Television, the norm is that you only want to go so far in certain things, right? So I mean, that's just how it is.
We have to follow the diktat.
Yeah,
So
you
Navita
play
Kumar never happened.
you're playing the game, right? So if you're going to play a game, you got to play a game by the
That's what I'm
rules.
saying.
Yeah.
Try it, but then we have this podcast, and hopefully one day it'll grow to 10
Unless you're
million.
Dave Chappelle. If you're
Unless-
Dave Chappelle,
exactly what I was
you
gonna
can,
get
you can
to.
break all the
Yeah.
fucking rules.
No,
He
one second.
got
If
his
you're
money
Dave
also,
Chappelle,
dude.
if you're Dave fucking Chappelle and I love him, tell him to come to India and do that, all right? No,
Yeah.
speak. Let's see how he does in Myanmar, Dave fucking Chappelle.
And I'll be honest, right? I mean, like, they're making Comedy Central to be a villain out over here. I don't buy it.
But not anymore.
No, but I mean, like,
in the special,
the way.
About making money on his show.
Yeah, no, so basically, yeah, so I mean, like, what they're supposed to do? They invest in a show.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to make money on that?
I'm on Comedy Central side. I can't understand the problem. Well, when you did that, when you did the show, these were the rules and the copyright was with them or whatever the ownership is with them. What is the problem?
Yeah.
Now you're bigger than Comedy Central because you're probably arguably the greatest comedian of your generation. But hello, that's what the contract says.
Yeah.
The fuck, you can't turn around and say,
He can do this because he's Dave Chappelle, right? But now the thing is that it's just, I don't know, man. I feel like if
I
you're...
don't know. In our little world, we've all had some successful shows or once or twice. But we don't have a copyright to it. That's it.
Yeah.
I would love to have Bakra as my own show, but I don't own it. You better accept that. I mean, look, this is, again, getting emotive about this makes no sense to me.
No, it doesn't.
But oil and butter chicken, more importantly.
what do you think about his name ownership, though? About the name, The Chappelle Show? He's like, now at least I have the name back also.
Well, I know, but I mean, like, why did that? Dude, I'm sorry, but
And then Dave Chappelle, really, I mean, he can just walk anywhere he wants in the world. $1 million will follow him just to stay in two lines.
And listen, Comedy Central made a shitload of money on Dave Chappelle's show. What about the other 23 and a half hours that were programmed in that day? Did they make money on each and every one of those things? This is how this stuff works. When you're running a network, you have certain things which work and certain things which don't work, and you have to even all that shit out. I'm sorry, I'm not that sympathetic. I saw that there was one thing where he had no future royalties coming in. That, okay, I'm somewhat sympathetic to that piece, but the rest of it's just nonsense.
Yeah, but also, honestly, is it like he's being exploited? He's Dave fucking Chappelle. I mean, Silverie, how would you rank him? One of the 5 greatest that ever lived?
Absolutely. He's my favorite.
What's the fucking worry?
Yeah.
You know, I need the money. If it was contract with Comedy Central, you should support me, but not Dave Chappelle. He's bigger than all this shit.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Anyway, I think we're done. We've started attacking Dave
I think
Chappelle.
so.
The cannibalism of comedy has started. They're jealous that the guy is so successful and talented and has a little hair growing again, from what I remember from his last
Yeah, he's really, really, really funny. I mean, like, he is very funny. I disagree with the way that this whole thing went down.
No, and he's funny in a satirical way, whether he's talking about women or children or midgets or whatever. Sorry, I have to bring that in.
Wait. Abbas Momin has asked, Abbas has said, who is funnier, Dave Chappelle or Raju Srivastav?
That's a bit mean because we don't live in the Raju world. But I've met Raju live a couple of times and he's very serious. I think Dave Chappelle will probably be a little different. He'll be that laconic, laid-back sort of approach in real life as well. What do you think, Amit? He'll be what you see is what you get. He won't be a different guy off camera, would he?
No. They're all performative to some aspect, right? I mean, like, even his persona is the chain smoking, always looks somewhat high.
In my hand, I'm so cool, it's uncool.
There is a persona. Yeah, I'm the person smoking in public in 2021, right? I mean, like, there is a persona in that.
Yeah.
Nobody else does. I mean, like, do you see anybody else smoking these days in public, on camera, in live stuff?
Most of the comics also do.
Andrew Dice Clay used to make it.
Doug Stanhope. There are some comics who like.
But Andrew Dice Clay always had a cigarette in his hand, didn't he?
Oh, but that you're talking about like 1980s, dude. I'm saying in 2021.
No. I'm saying there was a tradition of that type.
Yeah.
There was a tradition of that type, the laid back. It's so cool that it's a practice coolness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, but this is definitely performative, right? The idea of the cigarette that he always has with him, that's an aspect of performance. I mean, like,
okay, let's answer the question, boys. Answer the question: Raju versus Dave Chappelle. And now Abbas, well, he's the guy who's actually understood Raju's comedy. So let's give him a. I think the difference between the two, honestly, is Dave Chappelle, forget performance, but thought process, looks at society properly, and tries to look at awkward moments that you and I would shy away from. But Raju is telling a joke. It's a different thing. It's like, hey, guy, तो गाय के पास घास है, घास के नीचे सूरज आया. It goes in that direction.
It's different.
They're suddenly making a point.
They're talking to different audiences.
Different audiences, yeah. It's a difficult thing. And plus, Raju doesn't smoke, so it's a huge problem.
So that's different, no?
Okay.
All right, cool. I think we're done.
Nobody spoke. Fair enough. I think we are done. I think we were done about 2 questions back. By the way, surviving marriage on Friday. Look forward to that. We'll see you soon. Bye, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Okay, catch us on any of the podcasting apps, please. We beg you. We need you. Send us your questions on Twitter on Cyrus Says In. Or you can email us, even if you're not female, on whatcyrussays@gmail.com.
If you love cricket, listen up. The Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is here for you. Hosted by DJ, Varun, and me, Ashwin, we bring a fun, fresh fan's point of view to talking all things cricket. Sometimes it's just the three of us, sometimes we have guests, including current and former international cricketers. For new episodes every week, check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Working Monday to Friday glued to your chair making you feel dull? Worry not. Get your 5-minute weekly dose of travel around the world with Postcards from Nowhere. Join me every Thursday as I explore the strange, obscure, and fascinating parts of the world and bring out facets of travel you may not have thought of before. You can find us on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.